Whoa, it's a surprise to see you too. You are listening to off-season Cincinnati Soccer Talk. It's a little bit like regular Cincinnati Soccer Talk, but we're fatter, older, and have detached ourselves emotionally in order to catch a breath and avoid hurt in case our favorite players are cut. And cut some of them were. We take a little bit of time off each offseason because, well, the news slow down and the club, they just take time to make moves. And we don't always have everything we need to do a Monday show. But MLS announced a season that is coming sooner than it ever has before. So that feeling of off-season won't last as long this year. I'm Boston Brazel, and I am pleased to be back on the mic talking with friends. And I'm going to speak with a bit of optimism in the air, a very cautious optimism with a new coaching hire on the horizon, new leadership coming into place, and player silly season just around the corner in a month or so. So you got to care a little bit more than you did when we closed the book on the season just about a month ago. Don't get me wrong. I'm still looking forward to chilling and opening presents before getting fully sucked in. But I did buy plane tickets to Austin for that first match. So who am I really kidding? I guess I'm ready. It is time to welcome in the cast that was clamoring for this show. I said, no, guys, it's not time yet. No need to rush back on the mic. But you all have been emailing in. We've gotten them. We've gotten the DMs on Twitter. And this cast was chomping at the bit to talk a little bit about FCC, so I'm going to let them rock it. First up, how has the offseason been treating you, Nate?
Yeah, it's been good. Not having to watch the orange and blue on the field is improved my weekends. I don't know, 50%. Maybe.
What do you what fills the gap? Premier League, NFL. What are you putting in that spot?
Yeah, unfortunately, watching the Bengals yesterday really, substituted well for FCC in a lot of ways. But yeah, some various soccer leagues from around the world, some EPL, some Bundesliga, and then thinking way too much about what 2022 could bring at TQL Stadium.
Yeah, if you're like me, I mean, like I put it out of my mind for at least a week, and then
it's definitely
we're addicted, so naturally it flows back in. Oh, but Jeremy Lance, it may be freezing outside, but you are somehow still kicking soccer balls, or at least helping other people kick soccer balls. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm doing good. This is the slower period. We're not playing as much outdoors. People don't tend to enjoy that this time of year, but we actually still do run outdoor leagues in Cincinnati.
Wow.
During the winter. And we still get teams to come out to it. Like, so the real psychos that just can't get away from the game, don't want to go play indoors, like they'll still come out and play in January with us.
Do they show up in like tank top and shorts too?
Some of them do. Like some of the guys like definitely are wearing like their normal gear that they would wear in like the middle of June. So yeah.
Those are the guys that are just ready to get out of the home life.
Yeah. You also notice like teams don't want to do a long halftime because like as soon as their body stops moving, they're going to just get cold. So they're let's just skip halftime. Let's just go straight to the second half.
Honey, where are you going? I've got soccer league. I still got soccer. It's January 15th. Sorry, still got to go play some soccer.
Got games.
You got the kids tonight. But aside from that, I'm glad you're doing well. Jason, it was good to spend some time with you down at the CST live show. How is it, man? How you been since the break?
Doing well. I'm filling the time with catching up on Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff, binge watching things. And, back to Jeremy's point, if amateurs can go out and play soccer in January, MLS can really just flip the season to January.
We're ready for it.
There's no excuse now.
Now you guys are pushing the, I'm alone on my island. I said I was not digging the early winter start in Cincinnati, but it seems to me like I'm in the minority here.
Yeah, I think as we've seen on soccer Twitter, there's nothing that can possibly go wrong with playing a January game in St. Paul. So yeah, let's do it.
Well, I'm kind of interested when, during the regular season, we always do our segment best and worst. And normally it's whatever the last FCC game was, occasionally a USA game, but this is like off season. So you guys, clear board, whatever you want, your best and worst. I mean, if you want to talk about UC, talk about UC. But I guess we'll go with you, Jason. First up, best and worst.
My best is the MLS playoffs. I know that, if you're a soccer purist, you don't necessarily like champions be decided by playoffs, and especially one game playoffs. But I love them. MLS playoffs are nuts. They're insane. If you have the supporter shield and you're coming in as a number 1 seed, you're cursed. There's no way you're going to make it to the championship. And as someone who, the Western Conference team I follow, RSL, they came in as the number 7 seed, made it to the, conference final. So I was really excited for that. No number 1 seed survived. My worst, though, is kind of along those lines. Yet another Cascadia team is going to be playing for the MLS Cup Championship, and that's Portland Timbers. And I think I saw on Twitter the other day that the last time a non-Cascadia team made it to MLS Cup final, Chivas USA was still in the league. So for a league that has a ton of parity, really there hasn't been a ton of parity in the Western Conference and in the playoffs. And, it gets a little boring after a while.
Which club's the one where the general manager's like hired by the fans, like every 3-4 years vote or something like that? Is it Portland or is it Seattle? You guys know? I know one of the two of them have that. I just kind of always wonder if that's part of this reason that they're so successful out there.
Is it like a real vote though, or is it one of those like fake ones where they try to tell the fans like, "Oh yeah, you guys have a say," but they really don't? You know how that happens?
I have no idea.
Like Packers ownership stock.
Hey,
You're hitting close to home.
Family owns some stock in that. That's worth nothing.
All right, Nate, give us your best and worst.
Yeah, so I think kind of just broadly, my best, of course, relates back to this club that we're on here eventually to talk about. And it's really that Chris Albright seems like he's making the right moves after multiple general manager tenures that left fans scratching their heads about, any decision. It seems like there's a process that is in motion. Obviously, it's not going to be a quick turnaround. There's a lot of there's no way to turn this roster over in just an off season. But in all his press availabilities, Albright's been saying the right things, listing kind of the needs that I think fans who are following closely and care would cite as the biggest needs. And then, just even being in the news, and whether or not, then we'll come to it later, I'm sure, to talk about Jim Curtin, but, just being in the conversation and trying to go out and, use this ownership group's financial advantages to Cincinnati's, to their benefit. Like, if you have the money, use it. I know as a Reds fan and as a Bengals fan, we've been on the other side of the equation for, my entire life. So it's nice to be on the other side of that for once. So if they can figure out a way to go out and make this hire and finish the deal, I think it shows that if Jim Curtin believes in what we're doing, and it certainly speaks well for what's to come.
So
and then
before you jump on your worst, I just want to like find out where you're at as far as the Chris Albright hire, because I did listen to his fan where he talked to the fans like a week ago, and I felt like encouraged, but I didn't feel like a ton of it was new information for anyone that's been paying attention. But like, can you see like a groundwork that's already better than Gerard? Because I'm the guy that was on here hyping Gerard like before he ever made a move. I was like, this is it. This is just time.
Freezing cold takes.
I think it's going to take a while. And there really haven't been the moves that I think a lot of people would agree that need to happen. But if you need the proof, they just got knocked out by NYCFC. And were just decimated by COVID. So, without 11 players, missing the captain, missing other key contributors, and still, losing a heartbreaker. Setting up a team and a system and a process that is running so smoothly on such a, relatively shoestring budget. That's good enough for me. That's better than than Pek Zwolle,
Yeah.
Being a mid-table Dutch team.
That's a fair take. I just kind of wanted to find the roots of your Albright.
And then my worst is more general MLS. I was in Chicago for Thanksgiving, celebrating with some family. And I was, we weren't eating yet. We're a relatively late eating family. And I was like, oh, looking forward to catching this MLS playoff game on Big Fox. Unfortunately, the Chicago Bears preceded the MLS coverage, and the Chicago local Fox affiliate decided to show the entirety of the Chicago Bears post-game press conferences. They even reshowed highlights, so I got to see multiple clips of Andy Dalton talking about the Thanksgiving Day game, which I
love it.
Yeah.
So that was Chicago versus last place Detroit, right?
Yeah. So
so not even a good game.
Spend more time on that. So I personally didn't enjoy it, and then I'm sure MLS HQ really loved not having a marquee game on one of the biggest on broadcast TV in one of the biggest markets in the country.
It was the same here. I'm a Spectrum subscriber, and I had the exact same problem. And when they finally started showing the MLS match, it was something like 20, 30 minutes behind. Like they started it from the beginning or something weird like that, to the point where I just didn't watch it, which was really kind of upsetting.
Man, I didn't know that. That's pretty bad. Come on, MLS. Get it together.
And yet it got super good ratings. So they're going to do it again.
Yeah.
Just hopefully, no Bears post game.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll have the third biggest media market in the country able to watch.
They'll just say it was because all the NFL fans were already, just let their TVs on. But
hey, viewers are viewers.
All right, Mr. Lance, let's get your hot best and worst.
My best was the sigh of relief that went out in MLS HQ when Portland won, meaning that New York City would not host and that the MLS Cup wouldn't have to take place on a baseball diamond that it doesn't fit in, which would have been an absolute disaster for the league. I'm sure they probably would have tried to get it moved to Red Bull Arena because it just would have been an absolute just blight to the whole league to have that happen. But they didn't have to worry about it because, Portland won and then they get to host. So that's my best. Worst. I was going to say that New York City was in it still because I don't like them, but I changed that last second. The worst is the fact that Jesse Marsh gets fired, and now that's back-to-back American coaches at big marquee clubs that just get shot out of there real quick. I mean, we saw it with Bob Bradley when he was at Swansea, and that was such a big deal, and he was gone, goodness, I mean, he made it maybe 2 months. I mean, he was gone real fast. Yeah. Jesse Marsh really only made it a little over 3 months. So it's a bummer that once again, someone that we put a lot of esteem behind from the American side of it kind of flames out pretty quickly at the big club.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That was my first thought when I read the headline was, oh man, people are just gonna you just worry that it's gonna hurt the next guy. That's
the Bob Bradley one especially. I mean, that went so badly so quickly. It had been, it was kind of a big lead up to get us to that point where Bob Bradley got that gig. And then it just, it blew up on the launch pad there. And it kind of, I think it does. It hurts the American brand really in Europe.
Yeah, that's one that I still don't know what went wrong. He did so well with New York, the Red Bulls here, and then he gets the gig, and then he goes over there and he starts to. It seems like it's going well, right out of the gate.
Yeah, when he was in Austria, he was doing well. They were making, they were making Champions League and Europa runs regularly. They put up some pretty good fights. There was that famous match they had against Liverpool where they ultimately lose, but they threw up a heck of an effort.
Wow.
Yeah, and for it to happen so fast, in the Red Bull family, is surprising.
Yeah, you would think that he had kind of earned enough credibility within the family to kind of like get a little longer runway.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That throws me off. Like, he was their up and coming star. So now what? Like, now what?
Yeah. I mean, they kind of were grooming him there for years.
Yeah. So he's pretty much like free game for anybody else that wants to take a shot at him. We'll talk a little bit more about his prospects later. I don't want to spoil anything, but we'll jump down to that in a second. I guess I'll go real quick. My best, of course, Zico Bailey, man, getting that extension. All right. He's here for another year. And that's all. I mean, that's it. Like, I basically am ready to go now. Like, just, coach, we don't need him. We got Zico Bailey. Let's fire this team up. We'll just play
Zico Bailey player coach.
Yeah. 11 men versus 1. Zico Bailey. I bet we get at least 1 win out of that. I'm pretty pumped, if you can't tell. That's all I was waiting for this offseason. I got my news early. Santa came on Thanksgiving. So I'm down. I'm kind of with you on my worst combination. Like, MLS playoffs, we're going well. RSL, like a Cinderella story, shooting through the league, knocking off Seattle. Never saw that coming. Knocking off Colorado. Everybody else just kind of rocking through there, and then we end up with a boring final. Like, how did this happen? We had so many cool stories, and it's Portland, New York. Boo. So I'm with you guys on the final. But you can get in touch with us at Cincinnati Soccer Talk or email us at feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com. That's the spot. Several of you have, and we have appreciated your emails this off season. If we have time later in the show, I hope to pull up some of that stuff, and we can ask you guys, our cast, some of these off-season questions. We, of course, are sponsored by Suero X. Rehydrate with the new Suero X. 0 sugar, 0 calories. I believe we have a coupon. I'm almost hesitant to give it out because I'm not sure if it still works, but they did give us a 10. What was it? 10 or 20% off coupon. This is off season right here. When you don't know your sponsor's coupon.
Those manufacturing coupons, you just tell the store it's still good, and they'll just type it in.
That's right. This one works on
Sounds
Amazon.
good to us.
It's high tech. But so check that out. We'll put it in the show notes if you are interested. And of course, they are on Amazon. I think you can get it at Walmart. Aside from that, you cannot find it anywhere yet because it is coming to Ohio this spring. That is like the big debut. So we are actually the show that they are choosing to kind of use as their early launch platform to get a little bit of soccer buzz news out there. And then they're going to go full blast this spring when they fully launch their product on their shelf. So if you've walked into Aldi or Kroger and said, I heard about Suero X on CST, where is it? It's coming this spring, and you should see it everywhere pretty soon.
But just go bug them about it now, so it kind of builds the hype.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that will fill Kroger shelves. But no, hopefully you're able to find it here this spring. If not, Amazon's there for you. All right, guys. The real reason anyone's listening to the show, they want to hear about FC Cincinnati player moves because that's what gets people going in the offseason. FC Cincinnati announced that they are exercising 2 contracts, 2022. Zico Bailey and Viacia both got their nods. If you could, I guess just tell me, is that fine with you? Is there anybody on this list that I'm about to read missing, or is 2 fine? Because it's light. You look at other teams around the league, 2 is light.
2 is plenty.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
2 is good. There's maybe 1 that I would keep just for sentimental reasons on a league minimum, but yeah, there's not a lot to build off of, so you got to start from scratch, basically.
All right, well, we'll move on to the more controversial one since that was the easy question. Options declined: Castillo, Chris Duval, Jonas Friedelberg, if I'm saying that right, Flanagan, Joe Zhao surprised me a little bit. Nick Hagland, also a little bit surprising. Ben Lunt, the keeper, USL goalkeeper of the year 2 times in a row, never played a game. Sorry, Ben Lunt. Caleb Stanko and Shimishon Teton are all out the door. Out of contract is in Majunian, Velo, and Vander Werf, which I guess technically could be brought back with renegotiating, as they're just out of contract, not declined. Also, just up for grabs, you could theoretically renegotiate with any of those declined players as well, but so can any other MLS team, right? So, out of that list, what's surprising? What's who are you re-signing if you can on league minimum or name your price?
I mean, Haglund is the one, right?
Yeah.
Just, ties to the city. And, as we've seen, depth is a real issue. And, he's not going to be, I mean, you will not be hoping that he is your starting center back, but
Right.
I think you could do worse with a fourth string center back here. I think the only argument against that would be, can you find somebody in the super draft or find somebody else younger who's on more of a supplemental spot, who has a little bit more upside to grow into potentially being a starter down the line. But if that's not an option and Haglund's back and it is a purely rotational piece, I don't think you can't complain about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you can get him on kind of a hometown discount, if you will, I mean, I don't want to speak for him. He probably is into that because I know he recently bought a house. He's growing his family. He's from here. He's backing this new nonprofit academy here locally. Like, I could definitely see why he would probably do whatever needed to be done to stay. If that means taking, a minimum deal and knows he's going to be a rotation guy. I think that's a decent option.
Yeah, agreed. I think Nick comes back, just kind of a feeling. And then Zhao as well. I think that's somebody that you could maybe see FCC take a flyer on and bring them back. I mean, one thing to remember that we have coming up this year that we didn't have last year is US Open Cup. So depth is going to be a bigger issue now because we're going to have hopefully a lot more games to be thinking about next year.
Well, and also, these younger guys that were let go, like a Flanagan, is that someone where he then gets an option or offered a, whatever we're calling it, FC Cincinnati 2 spot for the MLS Next League?
That's a good point.
So
breaking into segment 4 early, but no, that's a good point.
We'll talk just about the logo in segment 4. It's so good.
Jeremy doesn't care about your rundown sheet.
No, you have to. You
like
have to clear the lines, especially with something like that, because there's going to be we got to fill a whole nother roster.
We're really saving the best for last. The most important. MLS 2, whatever, Pro Next. I don't know what it is.
Did you see how the crew fans were? They were mad that they just called it Crew 2, and it's like, what do you want it to be called? Like,
they were mad that they left Crew out, so now I'm confused. Like, all right, so
what? Who cares?
The first team doesn't say Crew. The second team only says Crew, and they're just going to be mad about both.
They can recycle the logo they threw away.
Yeah,
and just stick it on the Crew
triangle
2.
back.
That can be Columbus SC.
It should just be the pointy triangle. That should just be
the Triangle Club. There you go.
Oh man, I love this. That's a good off topic. All right, how about let's talk about Joe Zhao's stock. I mean, you're talking about a guy. I think a year ago, Brian Weigel was talking about as a player you could potentially pass on for GAM or TAM or whatever. FC Cincinnati. I think last year when we were talking at this time, the big decision was you could probably move a Joe Zhao, you could probably move an Alan Cruz in league for money. And I think both of them at this point are like no-goes. So that stock has just completely tanked.
Well, and you had a season where he was forced or whatever to pushed into that different role. So he's not playing his natural role for an entire season and then gets declined at the end of the season. That kind of makes it tough for him. But yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't set him up to succeed.
That's fair. Anybody mad about Ben Lunt?
I mean, just the idea behind Ben Lunt is kind of what infuriates me. The idea that you have a guy that USL Keeper of the Year for 2 years running, and he couldn't even see a minute just one cap for FC Cincinnati after all we saw with Vermeer last year. That's what bothers me the most.
So then he's probably relieved, though, right? Like he can go
probably.
somewhere where he can actually be given a shot.
You know where he's going, right?
Louisville?
Oh, he's got to. Like, they love him. They worship him down there.
Yeah.
The
Makes
moment
sense.
he was released, I saw a bunch of Louisville fans on Reddit like, Cincinnati doesn't know what they have. He's ours. Go get him. And they were like,
You're right. We
tagging-
literally don't. We couldn't see him.
they were like tagging their president on Twitter and Reddit and just trying to be like, hey, just so you know, like he doesn't already know that the keeper he had is free. But yeah, no, he's gonna end up in Louisville. He's probably gonna be USL goalkeeper of the year again.
I think, I think I agree that it's more of a failure of the process rather than like, I don't think, and like you said, we have no idea, but I can't imagine that he's going to end up being a best 11 keeper or even maybe a league average keeper. But with how bad the goalkeeping situation is last year, like you can't just like see what's there.
Yeah. If he could be a league average keeper on low salary, like,
yeah, right.
We'd sign me up. We'll take it.
And like, even if he's, I mean, we haven't had league average keeping since they've been in MLS. So,
yep.
But I mean, I think the positive is I think there's probably an upgrade somewhere that is going to be cheap. Like we could take any number of backups basically, probably, and end up with a better shot stopper in goal.
Yeah.
So
if you actually look domestically, you can find cheap keepers, something we opted not to do for 2 seasons.
Right.
Who are going to be league average.
Which is a huge upgrade.
It's the level we're trying to get to first.
No, honestly, I think what doomed Ben Lunt was nothing. Like I know the coaches say that in practice he wasn't as good or whatever, but honestly, I think it all comes down to dollars. You're paying Teton over 100, maybe $200,000. You're paying Vermeer in like a abnormally large $400,000 when he comes in from LAFC, who was 4th string there, and he gets cut, right? And he comes here, and at that point, you have $500,000 or more in goalkeepers, and we pulled Ben Lunt out of his happy home because of an injury. And now he's stuck on our roster behind $500,000. And I honestly just think FC Cincinnati was too embarrassed financially to play the guy because it's like we have all this money. We can't put that much money on the bench instead of just realizing the whole sunk cost fallacy thing. That's my superstition theory. Like that's like what I think really happened. But there is the whole nother segment of FCC fandom that disagrees with me. And they say, no, he just isn't good enough to be an MLS keeper because that's what the coaches said, and we believe the coaches.
Throwing out like Florian Velo, I was a little surprised how quickly he faded. Like he came in, he looked like he was doing well. He's fairly versatile, and then I feel like once Stam left, we just didn't see Velo anymore.
No,
and he was essentially the first one out the door. I mean, he kind of announced it himself like a week or so ago.
Yeah, he was like the first player to be like,
and I think he's a player that's like on cheap wages, can play multiple positions. Like, I don't know. I feel like that was a guy they would have probably tried to keep. I was a little, if we were saying what we're surprised about as far as decline, that might be the one that he was out of contract and they just let him walk.
And did he have a green card?
Yeah,
I think so.
He had a green card. Yeah.
That whole, and that transfer deadline, I would, whoever can write an oral history of that and like what actually happened in that like 10 days span where, Kyle Scott comes over, Blackett comes over, the trade for Velo, and then Nykamp's fired.
It's
just absolute chaos. And, is this a move that was like, this will save my job for on behalf of Nykamp, or like, was there a longer term play here with Stamp? It's baffling.
Somebody's still approving those moves, though.
Yeah, that never made sense. Velo did a French language interview where he kind of talked about that. I don't know if you saw that. And he talked about how it was weird that like, because he played that game against FC Cincinnati in New York. And then afterwards, like his agent and the club were like, yeah, you're basically going with them, bud. Like, and he flew home with them, like in the gear. And they're like, I'm sure the rest of the team were like, why is this guy walking onto the plane? Who is it? What?
I hope he got on the plane in Red Bull gear.
Yeah, he said he got on the plane and like everyone looked at him and he was like, yeah, it was a little awkward at first.
He's got his Red Bull warm-ups on.
You know what's crazy is like I don't know if any of you guys remember all the way back to like our like introduction to Major League Soccer, and we go into the expansion draft, and everybody thinks Velo is a guy we're drafting from New York. Like he's unprotected. He's probably their best player at the time. He's young still. He had come off a pretty good season. And our Ken Edgar had put out like 2 articles saying basically like Florian Velo is one of the best 5 picks here. And we just
they took the other Red Bull center back who crushed them in the Open Cup.
Yeah.
Yep. They took
the USL player.
They took Nadam.
And Eric Alexander. Another solid one.
So
that was the midfield pick instead.
That's what cracks me up is like fast forward 3 years and we're like, we regret not picking you. All right, now's your chance, kid. Like after, I don't know. I honestly wonder what his career would have been like if we would have taken him right away. Because I don't know, there's a lot of decisions we could have made differently. But I think he would have been he obviously would have been better than Nadam. Nadam just played for Charlotte Independence the whole time he was here. So
yeah. Where is he now?
I don't think he's in soccer.
I don't think so either.
Awesome.
Like he was in New York, probably a system that he would have been a lot more comfortable in, and then we yanked him and then immediately sent him to the USL and he never got out. Like in fact, I think the Independents benched him and we got mad about it, brought him up, and it was like hilarious because we had no room, like not a single roster room for him, period. But he's practicing in Cincinnati in Milford.
International too.
Yeah, so we are we straight up broke Major League Soccer rules, and like everybody in the press knew it, but we're all just like we don't want to get the club in trouble, so we're just like hiding it under the table. No one's talking about it.
This club has always been really good about those international spots. So.
But technically, he was still on loan in Charlotte, playing in Cincinnati, training in Cincinnati. Never made any sense. Oh, man. All right. Well, that was kind of fun, actually. Anything else you guys want to talk about out of contract? I guess we should mention, we did mention the 9 players that got declined. Medunjanin. We already talked about Velo.
But we kind of knew Medunjanin was gone, right? He had kind of already hinted the fact that he was going to go overseas, back home.
Yeah.
And that was something he was really weighing. So, like, that was like, we knew that one was coming, right?
I thought so until he like started all this. I got 1 year left talk like a month
somewhere
ago.
else.
So
the only other one that, just looking at this list again, I mean, maybe you think about Edgar Castillo for a year again. Some left back depth. Obviously scored that banger against Columbus.
I would have liked to have seen him play more. Like, I wanted him to get more minutes.
I think he's getting up there. He might be 36 or 37 next year.
Yeah.
But he's got U.S. men's national team pedigree. Played in Mexico. You could do worse for if the contract is affordable. If he has to spot start. I don't think. I mean, there's no Gold Cup next year. Doesn't look like Costa Rica will be. I guess the World Cup is next winter anyways. So Matarrita should be available more. But, I could see bringing back Castillo for something similar to what he was on this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know everybody wants to get into the coaching thing, but real quick, before we do that, we have 17 players still under contract. Acosta, Tonga, Barrial, Blackett, Brenner, Cameron, Cruz, Harris, Kubo, Matarrita, Ben Mines, Makocho. What?
You're talking about USL champion Ben Mines?
USL champion Ben Mines. That's right. Archimedes, which I assume will be probably part of that USL 2 because he's just still so young, or that MLS 2 league or whatever. Kyle Scott, Sunderland, Vasquez, and of course your goalkeeper Kenneth Vermeer. We know for sure if FC Cincinnati wants, they can dump one of those players with the buyout. The rest of it gets a little murky because now you got to talk about trading overseas and maybe paying part of their contract, but that frees up a little bit of money MLS side, or somehow trading interleague. What's realistic here? If you're buying out one player, the two logical choices are Cruz and Makocho, just because of salary.
I'd say Makocho because we've actually seen Cruz play well at points. That can't really be said, at least in an FC Cincinnati jersey for Camo.
Well enough to get the contract we now want to buy out. Yes,
right. He's on what? I mean, he's on big wages. Too.
He's on like $1 million.
Yeah, that's absurd for a guy that had how many appearances this year? Like 6, 7. I mean, he barely was
like
a factor.
The only
on this
good
roster.
player from year one, so we signed him to $1 million contract. So you keep Cruz and you dump Makocho. Are we all in agreement there?
Yeah,
I don't think it'll happen because Carl Linder has to agree to personally do that out of his own pocket.
Right. And it's
There's
I think it's kind of a situation where like you're not going to cut him until you have an option to replace him. So like that buyout might not be coming anytime soon until like a transfer window opens because like even just having the depth and he hasn't really demonstrated that he's up to the level to this point, but he's certainly better than nothing in some ways. But like if they do get
that's the bar. If nothing is the bar, then yes, he's better.
I expect if there is going to be one, I would think would be Makocho.
Yeah, $1 million in a international spot. You need to be getting a lot of production out of that.
Yeah.
And certainly not with Makocho.
All right. I know this wasn't planned, but I just want to see, and you don't have to do it if you can't think of anything, but like one take from a player that's still on that roster of like either what their next season will be like whether they just were a starter and they'll never see a game or what's going on. My personal take is that FC Cincinnati will find a way to offload Barrial. I don't see him on the roster come February.
I think my take would be Kubo needs to play his proper position.
Yep, that was mine. Yeah. A year of Kubo where he actually gets to play the position he's brought into play.
I mean, he did a good job for what he was asked to do last year.
Yeah.
It was clearly not his preferred position. And I think we've seen glimpses of Kubo through the past couple of years that he has some offensive skill. He's just not able to use it where he is playing right now.
Any other hot takes there? Build the team around Brennan, maybe. Or Brennan.
I'm excited.
I'm somebody.
I'm excited. I'm excited for a full season of Brenner. This will be my. I'll just be the optimistic one, I guess. Which is, if anybody's read anything I've written this year, is an uncomfortable place for me to be. But I'm excited. Brenner is. I think he's going to be 22 next season. And he moved outside of where he grew up to a country where. Or a city with not a huge Brazilian population, if any, during the middle of a generational pandemic. So I'm willing to cut him a little slack. And, there have been a lot of DP strikers who struggled to adapt, especially young ones.
Yeah.
So
especially, year one, that's kind of been the case. There's been a lot of young guys that come in and that first season doesn't go so well. And then it picks up. They get more comfortable. It just works a lot better.
And it's a low bar, but I think he might have been the most productive FC Cincinnati striker ever in MLS. So the fact that he did that as a 21-year-old living in a foreign country for the first time is pretty impressive. So I think the pedigree will show out and the talent will, and he'll be I think legitimately good next year. I hope.
Yeah.
and FC Cincinnati hopes too.
Rupesh points at Chicharito. I know everybody said his first year bump was awful.
Yeah, it was bad.
He rolled into a lot better second year. I think he was even injured a little bit and still did all right. Yeah, Brenner has the advantage of the international second year bump, which is a real thing. I agree with you guys that is totally possible. Acosta will be interesting to see who and how well he works with people. And
which Acosta do we get? Do we get the Acosta that we had for the first half of the season, or the one that we had in the last couple of months where things had already kind of fallen apart and he was just dribbling into center backs for 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting offseason stories as well is just going to be what do they do with Vermeer? Like, what are they going to do with this guy? He lost all his allies. He lost Stom. He lost Nijkamp. So now you just have this $400,000 goalkeeper sitting on your. I guess you bench him.
Bench him.
Yeah.
Hopefully you are in a position where you bench him. You have brought in someone that can clearly take the reins and be the clear-cut number one keeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move to. I don't know if you guys pay attention to the comments while we go through this show, but we've already received. When were we talking about the coach? And so we'll move on to.
Was that this show? Oh, I thought we were saving that for next week.
Already have some suggestions.
Yeah, I thought we were just spending 25 minutes on the logo.
Yeah,
today.
That's right. The haven't you guys heard, man? There is a national hiring crisis. You guys, I went into Panera last week and they said no eating in. You can only order at the counter and you have to leave. So FC Cincinnati, man, they're just having a hard time. Coaches are in high demand. You got a very hot job over there at Salt Lake. You got other hot jobs around the league. Did Dallas just hired a head coach?
Yeah,
there's another one off the board. But let's go through the candidates we've heard so far. Jesse Marsh recently let go from Red Bull. This is like a dream candidate, right? Like, you're talking about a player that was so successful in Major League Soccer. He was still at the second recent the second American coach to be pulled to Europe. We heard FC Cincinnati did actually inquire probably right away. And I think this is where you were speaking earlier about our new GM. And I think this is the difference between our new GM and Nijkamp, is he immediately got on the phone, from what we've heard, called over there and inquired about the job. Jesse Marsh, unfortunately, I think is trying to stay in Europe. So I think there was also a report from Laura Fowler, basically backs up every single thing we've heard as well. She of course put it in written form, so full credit to her. And that
basically he's going to stay in Europe and try to find another gig there, right?
That's right.
I mean that makes sense. I mean, he had brought himself up to a high enough position, where he's playing, he's managing in Champions League matches, season after season. He gets one of the bigger Bundesliga gigs. So for him to lose that job, he's going to have suitors in Europe pretty quickly, I would imagine.
Yep.
Mm. Has LAFC found a coach yet? That
is also another one. And that's a wild card too. You don't know which direction they're going to go. And they're going to have that ability. We can talk about all we want about what Linder's willing to spend, what the ownership's willing to spend to coax away this coach or to get this guy. LAFC is still going to have, there's more of a prestige around it just because of the city you're in, club, the ownership. So it's going to be a gig that people are going to want.
LAFC, and if Marsh, they're waiting for the Mexico national team coach, right?
Tata, yeah. I think that's honestly probably what's going to happen.
I could see that, but I think if Marsh were to come back to MLS, which I agree, I don't think he will. I think he winds up in, probably in the Bundesliga again, or maybe even like a mid to low level EPL team. But I think if Marsh were to come back to the US, it would have to be with like an LAFC or New York City or something like that. As much as I would love to have seen him in Cincinnati, I think that's really a stretch.
Well, you know who spoke highly of Cincinnati, don't you? Mr. Jim Curtin, the guy everybody thought was going to be sitting in the MLS playoffs this week. But unfortunately, COVID wiped out their team. He said, it's flattering after being linked with the FC Cincinnati job. You know my relationship with Chris and how ambitious their ownership group is there. I know they are going to have success, but I have 2 years left on my union contract. This is where I'm going to be. Is he playing nice? Is he throwing us some credit because his old buddy is running our club?
I mean, he can't just go out in that press conference before the match and go, "Yep, probably going to take that gig. It's more money.
It's the same
I
thing.
can
You
spend
hear
more
from
too." Like
it's the same thing you hear from every college football coach before they take their next job. So
yeah,
but here's the catch, right? He didn't, for whatever reason, he wasn't smart enough to put I can opt out clause in his contract. He is the unions. The union has full control over his future. FC Cincinnati, Sam Stachel, how do you say his last name? Stachel. There you go. Reported that FC Cincinnati has already made a formal offer to the Philadelphia Union, and they denied at least the first offer.
You always deny the first offer. That's negotiation 101 right there.
So how likely is it the Philadelphia? Because we talked about this a little bit before the show, and I'm like telling you guys, there's no way the Philadelphia Union let go of the most successful coach they've had in a decade and let him walk out the door.
Yeah,
they got 2 years of this guy. Iron grip of him.
I think well, money talks. So if they do if Carl Leonard does open up the checkbook and pays, I would assume it's just like a transfer to Philadelphia ownership. I don't see why not. And also, like, I'm not sure. I'm sure Philadelphia would love to have him, but I don't think Philadelphia would love to have a disgruntled Jim Curtin who was denied an opportunity to move. And also, not making his agent very happy, not making, but you want happy players. You want players who are happy to be there. You want manager who's happy to be there. And if they don't think that they're going to get 100% of, his effort, not that he wouldn't do that, as a professional, but you want guys who are fully bought into the process. And if he's not, maybe it is best to, pocket that money and just promote Pat Noonan.
I mean, is that what it takes? Maybe they are going with the strategy of you just wave enough money around that Curtin then goes, kind of gets antsy and kind of wants that move. And then he's kind of the one forcing the hand of the union to make that deal happen. I mean, I guess that's kind of the weird thing is the mechanics of this, right? So you need the team to be okay with this, that they're even going to let like negotiations happen and all that.
Also known as paid off. Yeah.
And then you more so need the coach to want to make this move. So I don't know which strings you have to pull first.
Well, one thing I noticed like over the past couple of days is that the Curtin talk has gone from being just kind of rumors around FC Cincinnati Twitter to being, Sam Stachel reported on it, but even more people are kind of talking in that way. I want to say Taylor Twellman even put out something about Curtin coming to Cincinnati today. So yeah, I think there's smoke there. And I think there is something happening. I mean, again, this is a proven MLS coach who I think FC Cincinnati should open the checkbook to try to get. And Philadelphia is notoriously cheap. Their ownership group is rich, but they don't show it in Philadelphia at the Union. They sell off a lot of players, and this could be a situation where they're willing to take the cash.
Well, you think about it from this viewpoint, which I think is interesting. Noonan's up for grabs. Anybody can swoop in and grab Noonan, which he still has an impressive resume. He also has helped build this club in Philadelphia. We stole somebody else. I can't remember his name off the top of my head for a technical director already.
Well, and the Noonan thing has changed somewhat, right? Like originally it was Noonan was being heavily pursued by RSL. RSL's probably going to just offer Pablo Mastroeni the gig, right? I mean, he took him all the way to the Western Conference Final.
Yeah,
he's probably going to be afforded that right to take the job on permanently. So for Noonan, that's probably the only offer he's going to get at the moment.
So yeah, so if we're saying, you think about it from a negotiation tactic, I do kind of like it from this viewpoint. We go to Philadelphia Union. We're like, listen, we're taking Noonan if you don't give us Curtin, but we'll give you $5 million for Curtin.
Yeah. What do you want to do? Do you want us to take you're the assistant coach and leave you with a head coach that's kind of wondering, if the grass is greener on the other side?
2 years. He's leaving in 2 years.
Right.
He's got to.
Yeah.
Or do you want us to take the coach now and you can, have the cheaper option, right there in Noonan that you can pay less and he's going to do the same system. Really, nothing's going to change, in theory, as far as how like the whole structure of like the tactical side and everything works. Like it's the same crew. It's the same philosophy probably. It's just, you're just paying the cheaper version of it.
Yeah.
So if they're real cheapskates, that's the button you got to press.
We've heard Torrance name being thrown around again. He was thrown around last coaching cycle. We've seen Bradley Cornell from New York kind of thrown into the cycle here. A couple others. And then it's funny because the landscape keeps changing. Every time I look, somebody's off the board and somebody's on the board again. Is there any concern about waiting too long, or do you think FC Cincinnati's got all the time in the world here? I mean, I know the goal is pre-Christmas.
Yeah, it sounds like they're just waiting on what they're going to be able to do with Philly, and then everything else is like plan C or worse.
Yeah.
So I think they can wait this out because they're really the only other person pursuing trying to take away Jim Curtin. I don't know any other team that's currently trying to, coax that to happen. And Noonan's not going to RSL at this moment. So they're not being forced. I mean, they do need to get things going so that coach can come in and start making the moves and him and Chris can get in there and start figuring out how they want this roster to work. But I don't think there's a pressure from the aspect of losing out on the guy they want to someone else.
Yeah. Especially because both, if it is Curtin or Noonan, I mean, both are going to bring the same kind of system that Albright has talked about wanting to implement.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that Jim Curtin would end up at LAFC and be like, okay, guys, we're going to play a 4-4-2 diamond and press the hell out of everybody. I don't think Carlos Vela is going to be like, sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's not how LAFC is built. So I think I'm not sure who they're competing against. So absolutely, I think, and that game was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I think there's, I think before Christmas is still very reasonable.
All right. Well, our show is by and large supported by our fans, and we have a new Patreon supporter, an off-season Patreon supporter. So, Thomas Septh, we appreciate it, and I don't know if you're supporting us because we stopped talking or you wanted us to come back, but either way, we appreciate it. And of course, you are welcome to join our team and throw some support our way. And of course, it will go towards our 2022 plans. CST never stops building. We like to try to keep good content, good shows coming your way. And of course, we are working on that behind the scenes. Real quick, we want to give a shout out to Red Lee, John Davidson, Mike Hudson, Robert Stephen, Laura Failer, Matthew Adamczyk, Buddy Taylor, Riley Stephen Burke, James DeBro, Tom Newhouse, Brian Weigel, Brian Gills, Dan Alvarez, Will Kychek, Ian Rexroad, Augustus Caceres, Bill Antonitis, Carl Feit, Jeremy Schran, Kyle Pohl, Christina Sharma, Rupesh, Mike Hudson, Tom Bezeldorf, Jason, who is super average, John Haskell, Ryan Ernst, Mary Lou, West Antonitis, Rob Pierce, Clifford Adams, and of course, Thomas. Thanks again for your support. We appreciate it. MLS playoffs. You guys talked about it at the top of the show. Real quick, highlights. Anything you've loved? Anything you wanted to see more of? Are you surprised the final is Portland, New York City? Anything goes in these kind of like one-off matches.
Surprised or dismayed? I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little surprised. I don't know. I think we keep thinking that like New England or whatever the number one club is always going to have this easy ride, and it just never works out. And once again, New England's the Supporter Shield winner, and they're quickly out of the playoffs. I don't know, a surprise, but I did enjoy RSL basically ruining the entire Western Conference playoffs, like just completely, like just being the real bummer that was just knocking out this team and that team and all these big clubs that had great seasons, and they just come in with their interim manager and no owner and just mess everything up.
Nate just left. He left at the wrong year.
I admit though that I think everyone in the back of their mind, in their lizard brain, were kind of rooting for MLS Cup final to be on a baseball field, just to see it happen.
The allure of chaos is always there. Yes,
I still doubt it would ever happen. That's.
I just regret. So I've never. I live in a municipality where sports betting is legal. I don't think I've ever placed a legal sports bet or a sports bet in general. And I almost did the most reckless thing, which would have been to bet on the MLS playoffs. I almost put down a little bit of money on NYFC at plus 1100. And I am very much regretting it at this moment.
Yeah. You should have done that.
I should have.
I had a feeling the Revs weren't going to make it just because of how well they were doing. And it's single elimination. That's why I'm not a huge fan of Major League Soccer switch to single elimination, because I think you end up in this era where the best teams are not in there.
Well, the Revs also had a 3-week break between.
Yeah, it's like it's a penalty. It's a penalty to be first seed.
It's the single elimination is fun from a neutral standpoint. When it's your team, it's like we had this amazing season and it's all just going to be thrown into the garbage here in 90 minutes. So it's unfair from that standpoint.
I think I did see that the Revs chose not to play on Thanksgiving. They were offered that spot, but opted against it for whatever reason, whether it was a Foxborough issue, whether it was a football, some other thing. I think they could have played sooner and they did not.
Huh. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I did bet on one MLS game when I was out in Vegas a month ago. We weren't quite there yet, but I did bet that Portland would play. Let's see, I think I bet on. Let's see, which one was it? The Portland Colorado game. Yeah.
How's that? Is it all automated, or did you have to show up at like the betting cage and be like, I would like to bet legal tender on Major League Soccer?
I used the app, but what's funny is you still, whatever casino I was at, you still had to go to the cage and give them money, and then
they had to ask a manager to like, do we do MLS bets? Are we doing this?
Can we get a pit boss down here to approve this bet?
MLS is partnered with MGM Casino, so you can.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
you can totally use it. But what's like kind of old school about it is I had to go to the cage and I had to give them money and say, put this on my app, and then they put it on my app. And then I could use the app, but I had to like hand cash, and when I went to cash out, I got cash out like physically, so I had to like do everything while I was there. I couldn't go home because I can't get the cash then. So but I bet on Portland to beat Colorado because for some reason it was dead even odds. Games in Portland versus Colorado, and Vegas is going, we don't know who's going to win. And I was like, I do. So bet on that game, and I cleaned up pretty well.
Nice.
Paid for dinner that night?
Yeah. That's the one cool thing about MLS betting, is that it's still one of those things that I think an educated fan can just make general assumptions and do pretty well, because not enough people bet on it. The odds don't always shift the way they're supposed to, in my opinion. Like the NFL is always going to be what the general population thinks because there's so many people betting on it.
Yeah.
The casino doesn't care. They just want to balance it.
Yeah. Right. They'll take your money.
Yeah. All right. Well, real quick, we did have a new league announced. All of the MLS teams, a good chunk of them anyway, are going to an MLS Reserve League. 21 pro clubs this upcoming year. 8 additional MLS affiliate teams will join in 2023. They are all pretty much MLS 2 teams, except for your Rochester Rhinos coming back from the dead.
The ghost of the Rochester Rhinos. What are they? They're Rochester FC or NY. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
And Jamie Vardy owns them.
Yeah.
James Varney,
Awesome.
partially, but they still have the old Rochester owners, the other partial. So,
Like, do they still play at the same venue?
I think so.
All right, I'm in.
I'm like, don't quote me on it because I don't think that's out yet, but I do know that stadium is like weirdly, like there's some dispute between the old owners and the city, and I think that's where they're going to play. That where else are they going to play? I think
That was part of the reason they went away, right? Is there was that dispute?
Yeah, and it is being maintained. I know that, so it hasn't fallen in disrepair. So
I drove by old Crew Stadium, historic Crew Stadium, on Friday, and they got a bubble over it now.
yeah,
Over the field, not the actual like stands or everything. That's a weird look coming down the highway, seeing this old, like historic MLS stadium that you've been to a million times, and there's like this giant bubble just sitting on the.
Let's get
but
that.
is the stadium like is the walls torn down around it?
They took down, I think, one end of the stands, but I think 3 of them are still around. They turfed it, obviously, since they're doing it in a bubble. They turfed it.
And it's the practice field, right?
Yeah, let's get the Bengals up there to practice.
They need an indoor stadium, don't they?
Still waiting on that one. They're still going to wall, I think.
Oh my word. So yeah, FC Cincinnati gonna have reserve league. We have to do a lot of signing, I would say, between a first team and a second league team. You look at the roster. Are we just going to be pulling kids out of the academy right and left here?
I would think so. I mean, if you look at some of these, sorry to interrupt, but if you look at a lot of these MLS2 teams, you're coming from Salt Lake, a lot of the Monarchs was filled by RSL Academy players. And it just kind of created that pipeline, which in the grand scheme of things, I think is going to be a really good thing for the league and in American soccer as a whole.
Yeah. And like, at least with what Philadelphia did with Bethlehem Steel, playing the same system, the same tactics. When you do have holes on the first team, you're developing youth players to fill those exact needs. So you can drop a Paxton Aronson in and he can, he knows exactly what he's doing. He might not have played with these guys before, but he knows exactly what's expected of him. He knows exactly where to be, how the team is going to press. So, that top down structure and, just getting those kids, assuming it is mostly call ups, getting them competitive minutes against other, similar level players will be, nothing but good.
No.
I did read in the release for it that it's for like young up and coming players, but they also mentioned older experienced players looking for like to showcase themselves, I think is how they phrased it. So like you could get some like guys that instead of going to a whatever USL team, you could get the next Jimmy McLaughlin could just go and play for FC Cincinnati 2 instead of having to go to Louisville, the unofficial FC Cincinnati 2.
Can we move Kenneth Vermeer down there and not pay his contract's absorbed?
Be breaking some wage records there in MLS Next.
Well, we broke wage records in USL.
That's what we do. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Oh man, how about that logo? MLS designers are really going all out to make you learn how to read slanted diagonal writing.
I thought it was the sequel to Squid Game. I was like, what? It was just the weirdest. They all of these things. I mean, the MLS is not like some fly by night organization. Like they went through the normal market thing, marketing things where they had focus groups and threw it in front of a bunch of people. And yet it made its way all the way through that to actually being the logo. Bizarre.
What's crazy is I thought it wasn't bad. except for it was overdone, like way overdone. Like if you would have just done a little bit of your diagonal slanty whatever, I think it works. Like
it's the P, isn't it? That's like basically sideways.
In the 2022, like 2022, it's completely.
Yeah, the P looks like it's falling over.
Yeah.
If there's one thing in American soccer banter that makes me just switch my brain off, it's logo talk. Because every time there's a logo, everybody in the world is a graphic designer. And, you know, there are things that I will look at and go, that's just to be completely honest, I didn't like the Last Crew logo. I'll put my hand up and say it. I thought it was busy and it got dated real quick. But
what, the circle?
The Bavarian one?
Yeah,
okay.
Did not like it. But, you know, I'm not a graphic designer. But then, you know, a new logo comes out and everybody's, you know, if they had used, you know, Calibri Light font, I think it would have worked a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, I don't pick up on that stuff where they're like, yeah, they use like 4 different fonts. I was like, I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to pick up on that.
I just go, ooh, new logo. And then my brain just shuts off and goes on to something else.
Jason, most of the time I'm with you. This one, however, I had to tilt my head to read it, so I'm not as on board. But I'm with you on the team logos. I like when FC Cincinnati logos came out, and some people were like, "It's a gas station." I was like, "Who cares?" And then the same thing with the Crew logo. I was like, I don't know. It's a really tall, looks like a tall boy can of beer, but who cares? And then I made fun of it more just because they're our rival.
I just think it's great that MLS is continuing to try to take over all of American soccer, including, you know, the minor leagues, and soon they'll be coming for the women's leagues and the amateur leagues.
Hey, USL's pretty much got most of it on lock outside of First Division.
Yeah, exactly.
Need some competition.
Some
USL's going after the in WSL this year.
It's a good time to go after them. Their press hasn't been good for them, so
it's a really good time.
It is going to be
speaking
interesting.
of design, though, you know, you've got FC Cincinnati rumored orange kits. There's been a lot of fans clamoring for everybody, but redheaded people have been clamoring for orange kits.
It's true. I got excited, and then you mentioned that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I can't wear that.
So, how excited are you for some orange in the FCC fandom? Are we allowed to talk about that? We can't talk about logos.
No, I think it's great. I think there's been people who've seen it, haven't there?
Oh, I'm sure.
I think I've heard of people like who've seen it and have
I think
gone,
anyone like on the secretive fan committee. Yeah, they've all been like, it's orange. Or like, yeah,
because these production cycles are done so well in advance.
Yeah.
I mean, they're generally a season or two ahead when they're like developing all that stuff at Adidas. So it's out there.
Is it going to be a third kit though? That's what I'm wondering.
So what the third kit thing was, Adidas was only doing it for teams that had met certain sales benchmarks, I believe what it was. And we for once didn't on the year they started counting. Sucks. Yeah. I feel like we will eventually get into that realm where we're earning that third kit.
You mean, I don't know. FC Cincinnati is going through players, so you know if you bought that Teton kit, you're gonna have to go back to the store this year.
Hey, I can do you one better. I went to the warehouse end of the year sale they had at the team store at the stadium. They were selling used training gear from the players, and I am now the proud owner of some Tom Pedersen 3/4 length pants. So there you go.
Nice.
Those are mine now.
Do they fit?
Yeah, surprisingly well. Fit really well. Also have an Acosta training shirt. It's a little tight. I'm sure it was baggy on him. A little tight for me.
Yeah. He's a tiny dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a good take.
Talk about some great game used gear.
Well, there's some construction news, but we'll push that off. I don't know if there's enough there to even really talk about it quite yet. I guess we'll just get your final thoughts since we are well over an hour here, and somehow this is going longer than a normal show. You can tell we have been dying for some soccer. Lance, give me your final takes, and we'll get out of here.
You mentioned at the top of the show, you feel optimism. Jason and Nate, you both talked about how with Chris, there is this feeling of like we're moving in the right direction. And this is an off season I feel like can get really exciting. I know even Chris Albright has said like this is not the off season where they're going to have the flexibility to do all the things they need to do, but I have so much confidence in the moves we are going to see here over the next 2 months are going to be moves that A, Phil needs, B, don't jack up like our roster spots and we're, having to buy international spots every other day, and move us to this final end product that will actually, make sense, unlike everything that has happened before us.
I like it. Nate, give me your final thoughts.
Yeah. Even with playoffs going on and the final coming up, if you really need to scratch that itch and, this show hasn't done it for you, the half-day trade window is just 6 days away. So hopefully we'll be able to see, like Jeremy was talking about, some of the foundation, not foundations, but, some of these moves start to come to fruition, to correct some of the issues on this roster and set this team up to succeed in the future. Maybe not this year, but in years to come.
You got some high praise coming in email wise a couple days ago. Somebody's reading your article talking about the off-season needs. He was wondering about Kyle Scott, and I guess since you wrote the article, the guy that wrote in thought he would fit well in Stom's 4-3-3, but didn't get enough time really to play around. Do you think he can work in a new coach system?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. I haven't, I don't think any of us saw enough at the end of last season. Maybe I'll go back and look, and I can write a little addendum with some Kyle Scott takes.
Yeah. He just kind of wondered, like 4-2 diamond.
Yeah.
If we're headed that way.
Yeah. I mean, if he does turn out to be a kind of a competent central midfielder, adding another one would be a huge boon to this offseason to not have to go out and acquire another 8.
Yeah. There you go. Just shooting you writing ideas. Nate's been killing it off season, keeping us up to date on the website. I have no idea what's going on, but Nate does. So
yeah,
you're in good hands.
Keep writing in and giving me homework.
That's right. Feedback at CincinnatiSoccer.com. If you have any follow-up questions for any of our articles, that's an awesome place for it. We did send that right over to Nate, so just want to let you know that got in and it got to the right spot. Also, we got an email to Coach Goff and Justin Hoyt. Somebody wanted to know some stuff. So hopefully that's on an upcoming podcast and you'll get your questions answered there. Well, I don't want to steal their thunder, so we'll keep it going. Jason, final thoughts, man.
Final thought. I kind of echo Jeremy and Nate. MLS offseason, it might be because it's the only offseason I actually pay attention to in all of sports, really. But it's always an exciting time. And unlike the past couple of years where I kind of felt like we were just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, it feels good to have a GM who knows how this league actually works and knows all the TAM and GAM and WHAM and BAM and all the other stuff. And that we can finally, get us a coach in the next couple of weeks and get moving forward. It's exciting time to be an FCC fan.
Yeah, I'll build on that and just say that it's going to take 2 years, guys. I think we're going to make some progress. I think our new GM has a deck of cards in his hand, and he didn't put half those cards there. Even after he goes and he does his half-day trade window and he does his preseason signings and he wheels and he deals and he has an expansion draft. And end of the day, there are some Kenneth Vermeer cards in his hand he did not put there that he's stuck with. Alan Cruz, whoever else is still stuck in that. And it's going to take 2 to 3 years. I honestly think, we can dig ourselves out of last place this year. And then next year is going to be all about really trying to find the playoff line. Some people think we'll make a playoff line this year. If we do, that is like, let me just put this out there. That is an incredible achievement that I'm telling you is not going to happen. So if it happens, holy smokes, you did a lot with little, Chris Albright. And
if we can be playing meaningful soccer into August, I'll be excited.
Yeah. So he was asked, what is your goal by like some of the SG's fan groups when he sat down and met with them right when he got here, and like his big goal is like 8 to 9 home game wins. If we can do that in year one, I mean, that is a 700% increase in home game wins. So, yeah, that's a huge accomplishment, but that's not getting you the playoffs either. Making the playoffs, you're winning a lot more at home, and you're tying or drawing or getting a couple steals on the road. Barring, I don't think they're changing the format. We got more teams coming in the league, right? You got St. Louis coming in.
St. Louis is next year. Charlotte's this year.
Charlotte's this year. Yeah. So the competition is just getting a little tougher unless they add more playoff spots. So,
or is it getting worse? Because we get these new teams in and they make the same mistakes we made. That'll help us out.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was the wrong conference. Nashville comes in banging, and Austin's like, hey, we're going to be FCC.
Come on, Charlotte.
They're going to be as cocky as us because they got money and seat licenses.
That's right. There you go.
But we appreciate you sticking with us in the off season, checking out CST in December of all times. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks to you guys for joining and taking time out of your Monday night and letting this run long. Greatly appreciated. Everybody else, stick with us. We'll have more news coming soon, and we hope to chat soon. Thanks, guys.